They've made their own standards that, if you fit into this bracket, you're acceptable. Else, you're denied.
Yes.
Even the basic rights, you're denied, which is something that, you've been fighting
Well,
for.
for the LGBTQI, there are no rights.
Absolutely.
The only thing that's happened is they have been decriminalized, but they don't have the right that every citizen in this country. My understanding of death and dying has changed because of my work with animals. So yeah, I've learned a lot.
How did that change exactly when you said that, your understanding of death and die has changed?
Because I think when you work on issues in a sanctuary like this, you get animals who are in such a bad condition that there's no way that they can continue to live. So you have to make that decision to put them down. So there was no space for orphan children who were living with HIV. At least for other children, there are orphanages, good, bad, or indifferent, but they're there. Government response was there. Children living with HIV, there was nothing. So when the first child got dropped off at our office, I went nuts looking for a place that would take him in.
So how do you keep yourself up with that? Because now you're telling me all this story, I'm feeling bad myself. So much is happening in the world, and we are just concerned about ourselves, our well-being, our happy happening and stuff. But आप उस level पे काम कर रहे हो जहाँ पे every day, you've been seeing a lot of stuff. और obviously वो आपकी mental health को in a way impact करता होगा, right? Because this is how it is. So how do you gain back? How do you gather yourself back and go back into the society and help people and species?
Because I have one mantra which I live by. I refuse to look at the big picture. Because I think when you look at the big picture, you get paralyzed. And that's the problem with most of us. We understand there's a problem. We would like to do something. But the problem is so huge, what do you do? So I decided long time ago that I will do what I can do as an individual.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Inspired for Impact. आज हम बात करने वाले हैं मिस अंजलि, जो कि फाउंडर है नाज इंडिया ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एंड ऑल क्रीचर्स ग्रेट एंड स्मॉल की। आज की दुनिया में जब हम सब खुद तक कंसर्न्ड है, शी इज फाइटिंग फॉर द राइट्स ऑफ बोथ ह्यूमंस एंड एनिमल्स. सो लेट्स डीप डाइव इनटू द कन्वर्सेशन एंड लर्न फ्रॉम हर. Namaste and a very warm welcome to our show Inspire to Impact, ma'am. It's just glad to have you here.
Thank you.
So just wanted to start with, you run two NGOs, like two foundations in a way, which is one is Naz organization, the another one is All Creatures Great and Small. So what was the exact pivotal incidents in your life which led you to such a, role in your life?
Well, Naz, of course, is an HIV/AIDS service organization with a focus on prevention and care, and also working with marginalized communities like the LGBTQI community and people living with HIV. So, and I've been working with HIV since the mid-80s, maybe mid-80s. And obviously, when I came back from the States, I was living in the States. When I came back, it was the one thing that I decided I could continue because that's what I was trained in. But I think All Creatures Great and Small happened because of two factors. One is my own understanding of rights evolving, because I'd worked most of my life on human rights issues, and clearly I wasn't thinking of other rights. I've always loved animals like mad, but I never thought of doing anything with them till I realized one day when I started looking around me. I volunteered with someone because I wanted to do something with animals, and I realized the level of care was awful. And I said, look, when I'm working on rights, how can I think of rights only in a way where we're looking at one versus another? Rights cannot be about just one species. If we're looking at rights, it has to involve everyone. So that was one. And then I really then decided that I needed to create a space which showed that it's possible to take care in a way where you put the individual at the center of that intervention, whether human or animal, which is how that happened. So
It's
yeah,
more about you giving value to the soul of a species, right? Could be an individual, could be an animal, or
it could be any living soul.
Absolutely. And when you started All Things Small, All Things Great and Creature, ideally, people, in a way, they do it probably for dogs, somebody do it for cows, somebody do it for a particular genre of an animal, right? But you were open to, having all sort of animals, be it emus, bulls, dogs, cats. So it's a very versatile in itself. So how does that evolve?
I think that also evolved like everything else on its own. Because when I first started, I was only thinking dogs. But because we are in a rural area, other animals started coming. And then I had to learn. And that's how it happened. So I remember when the emus first came, I had them in a very large pen. Till someone came and said, but you can leave them open. So I said, oh, really? So then I left them open. And then, of course, I didn't realize that the emus run very fast.
Yeah.
So they would run, and then the cows and the bulls and the horses and donkeys would completely panic. So then we had to make another space for them. So, one had to learn.
Correct.
And the same thing happened with the cows and the pigs and the bulls and all of that. So today we have nearly 1,000 animals of all species. And it's quite amazing because we have so much to learn from animals. The ability to get along with each other, incredible. Their ability to forgive. We as a species are so cruel towards them, and I always think, how can you ever trust us again? But they do. So I think that they teach you a lot. My understanding of death and dying has changed because of my work with animals. So yeah, I've learned a lot.
How did that change exactly when you said that, your understanding of death and die has changed?
Because I think when you work on issues in a sanctuary like this, you get animals who are in such a bad condition that there's no way that they can continue to live. So you have to make that decision to put them down. Sometimes because they're animals and there's certain disease they get which are notifiable, which means they have to be put down. So for me, the most heartbreaking event in my life was this incredible horse I had called Shabbo.
I saw that video on your website.
She was the queen of the sanctuary. And she got glanders, which is a notifiable disease. And she was absolutely healthy. But she had the disease. And when she was tested, we then had to put her down. Absolutely healthy animal. So yes, you learn a lot. You understand death in a very different way. You understand welfare. You understand. I'm a great believer in euthanasia too. For human beings, I think we should have the right to die. If we have the right to live, we should have the right to die. It should be an option. All of us should be able to exercise.
Choose for ourselves in a way.
Yeah, it really is important, I feel. And many people don't agree with me and they think it's wrong. And I respect that. But it's something I believe in very strongly because I don't want to be bedridden and dependent on someone.
Correct.
If I have nothing more to contribute in this world. So I'm very clear about that. So I think my work with the animals made me understand that even in a clearer way.
Absolutely. And when we also talk about Naz India, you started with kids, who were positive with HIV or AIDS, right? You started fostering these people, and eventually then you got into, young people initiatives for girl child, then you got into LGBTQI+. So how has the journey been that way? You started spreading your community in a way from one to another. How has that been for you so far?
HIV makes you do that. When I first started working with the community, because I'd worked in the US for so many years, at that time, this is the 80s I'm talking about, and early 90s, most of my work was with the gay community. So when I came back to India, it made sense to be able to do that. And I very quickly realized that in this country, definitely there were a lot of men who were married to women, a lot of men who were having sex with men who were married to women. And I said, that's when I realized that, this infection will spread from men to women. So if we have to work on HIV and children, so if we have to work on HIV, we must look at everybody. You can't be limited to one group of people. So then, obviously, the next step was to work with young people, because if you're looking at prevention, it has to happen with the young. Young people are going to get married, young people are going to get into relationships. So it's very critical for them to make the right choices and the right decision. And as the infection started spreading in the country, and I think in many ways the history of NAS reflects the history of HIV in this country. As the disease started, as the infection started spreading, we saw more and more children born with HIV. It's very different today. And children were orphaned. So there was no space for orphan children who were living with HIV. At least for other children, there are orphanages, good, bad, or indifferent, but they're there. Government response was there. Children living with HIV, there was nothing. So when the first child got dropped off at our office, I went nuts looking for a place that would take him in. Because I never wanted to work, I had no intention of working with children. And when that happened, I realized there was no one willing to take this child only because he was HIV positive. So we had no option but to start the care home. And over a period of time, children came. And at that time, we didn't know enough about children and HIV. We were not sure how long they'd live. No one knew, not the doctors, not us, not anybody. But of course, our oldest child is, I think, going to be nearly 30 now, working and doing very well in life. And it's very different today with the kind of medications that are available. People are living very long, healthy lives once they start the meds and take care of themselves. So there's a lot of hope. It's no longer it definitely is not the death sentence that people would think that it was. Yeah, it's not that. Once you get the meds and you follow it, you ensure that you take it on time every day. You're going to live a very long and healthy life.
And how did the Young People Initiative for Girls started then?
So that again started because of my frustration and not knowing what to do, because the government was spending millions of dollars on HIV prevention. Everyone was working on HIV prevention. Yet we were seeing young women coming in infected, young married women. So it's like, why is this happening? And clearly the messaging for everyone was, if you have multiple sexual partners. And these young women were saying, but this is my first partner. And what was even worse was that because after marriage they were getting pregnant, and that's when the testing happened. So the first person you got to know who had the infection was the woman, so she would get blamed for infecting the husband.
Absolutely.
Right? So I realized, in spite of us doing so much work on prevention, it wasn't working. I said, okay, we need to look at it differently. So an ex-board member of ours actually said, why don't you look at sports? So I was like, not very,
keen about it.
No, because I wasn't sure it'll work. And so he said, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen? I said, we'll fail. He said, so? Does that bother you? I said, no.
Something.
Yeah. So I said, okay, and that program took off. And it was one of our most heavily funded programs for many years, till COVID. And with COVID, you couldn't go to schools, you couldn't play in communities. So then we again changed the Young People's Initiative. We now focus a lot on career development and career counseling we're beginning to start.
Great. And when you talk about, focusing on these people, obviously they need a lot of mental support, right? Or they need a lot of healing that way. Apart from that, of course, they need a direction to go into, probably in terms of education, in terms of, how they need to look at the outer world, because they've already been hurt in a way which cannot be healed just by,
Which people are you talking about?
All the people that, we cater to.
The kind of people we work with.
The HIV positive people, or, girl child who has been, traumatized because of whatever has happened in the past to her, right? So
and the LGBTQIA
absolutely.
community.
Because all these, still we may say that, we are very forward looking or are very progressive, but still there's a stigma around all that, we guys are catering to. And people do look at such people in a way that, in an awful way, which is, very hard for me to say right now. But it is there, right? We need to accept that fact.
Yes, because as a culture, any society that is so stratified on class and caste lines
Absolutely.
will automatically other those who don't fit in or who they do not agree with or look down upon.
Yeah, they've made their own standards that, if you fit into this bracket, you're acceptable, else, you're denied.
Yes.
Even the basic rights you're denied, which is something that, you've been fighting
Well, for the LGBTQIA, there are no rights.
Absolutely.
The only thing that's happened is they have been decriminalized, but they don't have the right that every citizen in this country has.
Not even a basic right? Matlab, I was looking at somebody's interview the other day. Even for, having their Aadhaar cards, they would have to stand in lines, which is very basic in nowadays, right? Aadhaar is a mandate for each and everything. Uske liye bhi itna basic cheez ke liye bhi, they don't have anything in place.
It's very difficult. Everything is hard. And something as basic as what we don't even think of about as rights. For example, the right to marry, we don't think of it as a right.
Yeah.
We think of it as a matter of fact, if you're not married, it's a big issue in our culture,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. They'll be like, why
So,
are you not married?
yeah, here we have citizens of this country who do not have the right to marry, which to me is so bizarre in the 21st century, right?
Absolutely. They're not even given a choice, which is very bad.
Choice to
right?
care in this country, who has choice?
It's just that we're adjusting to whatever the scenarios are. Nonetheless, you've been working at such a wide spectrum with, all sort of species. Probably there's a cause which is very dear to your heart, which is very close, like,
I don't know. I think for me, it is a very deep belief in trying to create an equitable society. To me, that is very critical. And I definitely think post-COVID, it's getting clearer for everybody. Okay. We cannot be about ourselves. We have to look at this connection between the earth, between the environment, between humans and animals.
Absolutely. Things have changed,
I don't know.
After COVID, they have got a little better, because I myself have seen that, people were very stringent before COVID in terms of all those factors. Still, people have started evolving a little. They are being a little more sensitive about the environment, about people around them, caring for people around them. This is what I have seen on my level, probably. But, you are, you're meeting a lot of people. You have seen it on the wider spectrum. So, what are your thoughts about that?
No, I think some changes are happening, and that is hopeful. But I don't think as a society we take responsibility for what each one of us can do. I don't think so. I don't think we do that at all. And I'll give you an example. Something as small as the use of plastic. All right? I still see people buying vegetables and fruits in plastic bags. Now, I constantly am fighting with the sabzi wala or the phal wala, saying, "Aap plastic mein kyun de rahe?" He said, "Nahi denge to wo kharidenge nahi humse."
हाँ, मना कर देते हैं.
So,
We'll walk
मना
to the
करते
another
हैं.
shop.
So, I don't understand. I mean, in my car, I think every door has 3 cloth bags. So it's something as small as that. I even see people coming out of their homes, the sabzi wala is in front of the house, they'll take sabzi back into the house in a plastic bag.
Yeah.
So it's something as small as that. And then we want the government to make changes.
So government has banned it and all that, but you
the government,
yourself
anyway,
have-
that banning is another story. But if you're not going to ban the production, you're banning plastic bags is
Not gonna
nonsense. Yeah. But as a society, why don't we take the responsibility?
Correct.
It's as simple as that. क्यों नहीं
अपने
करते?
घर पे ही we are not able to take that step, so how do we
Not
expect
able to or don't want to or don't care.
मतलब हाँ, yeah, that depends.
Just everything is choked with plastic. We did surgery on a cow. We took out 65 kilos of plastic from our stomach.
She must have consumed.
Every cow on the street of this country is a plastic cow. Any cow that you see on the street is a plastic cow.
I'll tell you an incident. So there was this other day, I have this habit of, giving roti to the cow in the morning. So every time I go to a cow, they usually eat it. The other day there was this cow who was standing on a dump of, garbage. She refused to have that roti. She was more inclined towards having that garbage. Then I was shocked. मतलब हम क्या हालत पे ले आए हैं उनको? मतलब they're not ready to eat those green vegetables or probably rotis. Rather they're more inclined towards having those dumps that we have done.
Well, there are many reasons that happens. One is they're not able to digest anymore. That's the reason. And you see, cows, unlike dogs, when they eat
They don't
plastic,
tear
they
things
cannot
apart.
tear
They
it.
just consume.
So they consume the whole thing. So when we did that surgery, we found syringes, needles, small blades, all that in her stomach. It's that bad. So unless people get responsible, I think we're in for great trouble.
Absolutely. And when you're working for causes that way, and when you're working with such incidents happening with you, obviously there has to be a lot of determination in yourself also to take up such hard steps or probably different steps in life. So how do you keep yourself up with that? Because now you're telling me all this story, I'm feeling bad myself. So much is happening in the world, and we are just concerned about ourselves, our well-being, our happy happening and stuff. But आप उस level पे काम कर रहे हो जहाँ पे every day you've been seeing a lot of stuff, और obviously वो आपकी mental health को in a way impact करता होगा, right? Because this is how it is. So how do you gain back? मतलब how do you gather yourself back and go back into the society and help people and species?
Because I have one mantra which I live by. I refuse to look at the big picture. Because I think when you look at the big picture, you get paralyzed. And that's the problem with most of us. We understand there's a problem. We would like to do something. But the problem is so huge, what do you do? So I decided long time ago that I will do what I can do as an individual. I can't change the world, very difficult. But definitely at my level, I can do something. For example, I will never leave a glass of water. I will drink it, I will force myself, but I will not leave water like that. So when I serve water in my house, I always serve half glasses. If you want, you can ask for more.
Correct.
But I do not want water to be thrown out. So I'm just saying, all of us at our own level.
Correct.
So please don't let the big picture paralyze you and you end up not doing anything. So we can touch one life. We can touch, whether human or animal, it doesn't matter. You have a maid in the house. If you take care of one child of that maid, you will move her to the next level.
Absolutely. Agree.
And how much does it cost for us to take care of one person?
Absolutely.
Each one of us can do it.
Agree.
So I just feel we are making excuses for not doing anything. We have to make sure that we contribute, give back. We've got so much. And it's our responsibility to give back. And all of us can give back.
Absolutely. I've seen people that, you were referring to this thing that, everybody can take care of one person, probably from your house help or somebody. I've seen people that they want to give back, but they want to showcase it more that, I'm giving at such a cause, I'm helping so and so people, rather than the intention of helping.
ठीक है, but even
At
if
least
that
they
is
do.
the reason to give na, but give.
Correct.
Because so many lives will change. So many lives will get impacted. There's no reason for us to hold back.
Correct. मतलब you very nicely said that आप half glass serve करते हो, वो कितना conscious decision है आपका, because there are people जिनको पीने के लिए साफ पानी नहीं मिल रहा है, and we as individuals are just wasting water like anything.
In our country, water is going to be a big issue, lack of water. So we have to start
Absolutely. No, that's
taking some responsibility.
I'm absolutely taking this back today.
Please,
that
this is
from now on,
See, it's such a small thing. But look at the amount of water that you
impact
save.
it will make. Absolutely.
And each one of us is going to save that water.
For sure. अभी जैसे आप ये छोटे छोटे इंस्टेंस बता रहे हो, प्रोबेबली कोई एक ऐसा इंस्टेंस आपके साथ भी हुआ होगा अर्ली डेज में या फिर ड्यूरिंग योर जर्नी, जो कि आपके लिए बहुत ही डिफरेंट एक्सपीरियंस होगा इन अ वे, and which has probably changed you as a person in terms of values or ethics.
Yes, there has been just this one thing I know, and that's when my journey of understanding rights began, I think. I was in college and my mother, all I knew growing up is that my grandparents had died before I was born. And I'd never ask, because once or twice when I asked my mother, she just kind of didn't respond. So I stopped asking. And I was in college when a friend of mine and I were sitting, and suddenly my friend asked me about my grandparents, and I said, they died before I was born. And she turned to my mother and said, Auntie, kya hua? And my mother said, they were killed during partition. And I was absolutely shocked.
We're taken aback.
I was stunned. I said, killed by who? She said, there used to be a guy who used to actually come to the house to beg.
To beg?
Huh. And he, in front of her, her parents were, their throats were cut, and her uncle managed to smuggle her out, get her out from there, and went. And my mother had a lot of Muslim friends. We had a lot of Muslim friends. We have a lot of Muslim friends. Her driver was a Muslim who brought us up. Our cook was a Muslim. And I said, Ma, if I had known this, I would never have allowed Muslims into the house. My mother turned to me and she said, don't ever let me hear you say that again. She said, it happened on both sides. And it's not about religion. It's about people who lose their minds. And I think, to me, that was the time when my whole understanding of what it means to be caring and kind and understanding changed. My whole understanding of not blaming anyone or looking down on anyone was, that's when the journey started.
She must have been such a strong person herself.
She was incredible.
Matlab, this thought you have told me abhi shows, you know, it takes so much of stature to reach to that level.
Yes.
Ki yaar, you know, you can forgive somebody who has done such a heinous thing to you, and that too in front of your eyes.
Yes.
And then how come you as a person cannot go and hate a community that way?
But that's it. And
stopped it
that's
there,
what
just cut the
children
tie.
need to be taught. That you don't blame someone, don't blame an entire community for the deed of an individual.
Correct.
Right? So I think, and that's why I feel so strongly that children must be taught values, must be taught ethics, must learn to be kind and caring people. Because that's what makes this world a better place.
Correct. Lately, abhi jo Gurgaon mein hua, it was again the same thing, right?
I can't even, I think about it and I just feel like crying. Why would anyone have to feel scared of being who they are? Or feeling scared to even pray to what they believe in? Or to me, it's I can't even, I don't get it, I don't understand it. I just think it's horrifying that we are going through what we're going through.
Absolutely. मतलब I don't know where people have reached to. कहाँ से आपके पास इतना हिम्मत आता है, सोच आता है that you can go and cut people out, throw stones, do XYZ stuff just on the sake of कि यार ये हिंदू है मैं मुस्लिम हूँ.
No, it doesn't make sense at all.
आप पहले तो इंसान हो ना यार, मतलब how can you hurt somebody that way?
I don't. I just think it's horrible. The other day, this young friend of mine actually said, when someone asks me my name, I'm scared to say it because I'm a Muslim. And I just felt like crying because this is not the country we were brought up in. This is not us. This is not us.
वो आपके अंदर वो agendas ना fix कर देंगे. They have been fed into you.
But what are we going to achieve?
Nothing. Achieving nothing out of it.
And finally, it is the poor women and children. Manipur mein dekh lo, who are completely affected. Everywhere you look around, it's happening.
Absolutely. And nothing is happening about that, right? People are just doing a blame game. मैंने इसको blame कर दिया, उसको blame कर दिया. We won't find a solution to it.
To me, it doesn't even make sense. It's beyond my understanding. मुझे कुछ समझ नहीं आ रहा है. It's just scary.
As we were talking about that, when you're coming from a place of compassion and then you're leading to such, organizations at such a stature, obviously there must be decisions जो कि आपके लिए थोड़े मुश्किल होते होंगे, because सिर्फ compassionate होके आप नहीं सोच सकते when you're leading so many species in a way. You're the face of both the organizations, right? You're the decision maker there. So कैसा रहता है वहाँ पे आपके लिए? हाउ डू यू टर्न अराउंड दी हैंडल्स there कि या कंपैशन से निकल के मेरे को अब आई वुड हैव टू टेक टफ डिसीजंस टू मेक इट बेटर फॉर दीज पीपल और दीज स्पीशीज इन अ वे?
I think you have to do what you have to do, and compassion is what is an innate part of you, right? That doesn't change anything else. But those decisions that you have to make because an organization has to run are very different. But I would not do or take on any project which would involve me having to look away from the values that I live by. So, for example, I will not take money from a donor who wants me to give the names of the people who I serve.
And why would somebody want that?
Sometimes donors want to know because they don't trust NGOs.
तो आप जाके खुद हेल्प कर
हाँ,
दो.
तो खुद तो नहीं कर पा रहे ना. So, but for whatever their needs are that they want, तो हम तो उनसे पैसे नहीं लेंगे. And I've done that. Because I know with the kind of communities we work with, people don't want their names to be out there anywhere, whether it is only the donor who gets access to that information. So I will not take those risks. So there are ways where you don't walk away from what you believe in, right? And yes, it's hard. It's not easy because anyway, raising the resources to do this kind of work is also not easy.
Absolutely.
But having said that, let me also tell you, this world is full of caring and compassionate people too. I am amazed at how much people give. If they know that what they are giving is going to be used
For the right cause.
for the right cause, for what they're giving it for. And for that we have mechanisms in place. And I think the incredible part of doing work like this is that you meet the most wonderful human beings. So I always say when we do this kind of work, we do it not because, I think at least I think we do it because we get so much more back than what we give. Right? It's incredible, the kind of people. I'm so blessed and so lucky to have met them. They're so wonderful, which otherwise one would not have.
Yeah. You would have never known that, such people also exist.
No. And here I'm talking not about people, it is like the guard who's taking care of an animal outside society. His thinking, his ability to care and love.
His ability to give when he has himself the bare
so
minimum.
little, right? So you meet fabulous people.
You see people that who are ready to go out of their way to help others.
Absolutely.
This is incredible. Apart from that, everybody at their level probably think that as we were talking अभी पहले भी that we can make sense or change. जैसे कि आपने बोला कि आप बड़ा पिक्चर नहीं देखते हो, आप immediate thing क्या कर सकते हो, probably वो देखते हो. So say probably I as an individual I want to make a change into the society. वो तो बहुत बड़ी बात हो गई ना, right? So किसी को भी कुछ शुरू करना है, probably I want to start an NGO or a foundation to help certain specific sort of people or species for that matter. What do you think? What should be my first stepping stone?
I think when you think of starting an organization, you have to be aware of the kind of compliances that today exist. It's not easy to run an organization anymore. The the compliances that Government of India wants are incredible. But if you want to start something, there's one thing you have to remember is that no one can do this kind of work on their own. So ensure that you have a good group of people who are part of this journey of yours. Then you have to make sure that you have the resources or access to resources, or are very sure that you'll be able to raise the resources. Because that is the hard part. It's always difficult. Compliances, and I think NGOs have a bad name.
In a way
So,
they do.
yeah, बहुत. People always say, अच्छा पैसे बनाने तो NGO शुरू कर दो. हाँ, आपकी नीयत पे डिपेंड करता है. If you want to do good, you'll do good. If you're already thinking in this negative way, then that's how you will function, because that's the kind of person you are. But in today's world, running an NGO, ensuring that you are compliant is not easy. So you have to be very, there's a lot of paperwork that has to be done, but also there's a lot of good that you can do. So you shouldn't let that stop you from setting something up. Or join hands with an NGO that is already functioning, that has the reputation, or someone that you trust. You can do that. I mean, when people will usually come, especially for the animal shelter, they'll tell me, we want to start an animal shelter. Yeah. But you know what is involved in that? It's nuts. It's not something I ever wanted to do, because I was already running a home for children.
Correct.
I knew what it meant to start a home for someone. And I did not want to do it for animals. But I was kind of forced into it, so I did it. But it is exhausting, to say the least.
You were talking about that, when you run something of organization of your way, right? Collaborations or supportive people are very important to, scale it, build it, keep it functioning. So is there, obviously you have your team that is helping you and, taking care of both these species that you are talking about. Do you also have some collaboration that you cherish the most? कि यार ऐसे time पे probably they helped us or collaborated with us in a way which has turned the tables for us.
At every step of the way, there are many individuals, there are many donors, there are many organizations who have done it. I remember when I first started Naz, there was no money, as always. There was this young man who came to me asking for help for someone else, for a friend of his. I ended up helping them. And then he became like one of our donors forever. So today he still donates. And Naz is nearly 30 years old. And he also donates to the animal thing. So yeah, people do it all the time. And there are organizations which do it. We've been very lucky, like the DLF Foundation has really helped us with the animal piece. And they've helped us actually take the shelter to another level. We have a fully functional hospital because of their support. So yeah, there are many such people and organizations who will, they have to be there in your life, otherwise you cannot do. No individual can do anything on their own.
It's a teamwork anyways.
It has to be. You have to believe in larger coalitions. You have to believe that there are individuals and organizations who are out there who believe in what you're doing and will support you because of that.
Absolutely. So as we move ahead in this podcast, so I'll ask you a few questions related to the particular sort of I'll ask you a few questions about HIV positive kids, how you're handling these people, some about LGBTQ community that you are handling, a few about the animal welfare shelter that you're doing. So let's begin with, the initiative that you're running for the girl child. The community that we come from, there are many disparities amongst the genders, right? अभी वो सोसाइटी का इन अ वे बहुत सारे नॉर्म्स हैं चीज़ों को लेकर के, लड़कियों को लेकर के. सो व्हेन girls come to you in a way, how do you help these people to break these norms and guide them to the right path?
I think all that young women need is support. And when I mean support, when I'm saying support, I mean you're going to stand by them through their times of crisis till they're able to stand on their own feet. So it is about education, it is about training, but it is also about standing with them when their parents are trying to get them married off really young, or they want to dress in a certain way and they're not allowed to, or they're seen as a means to an end. So it's really important to work with the environment that they have to deal with. So it just can't be working with one individual.
And how, when you say that you need to work on the environment they are brought up in or are staying in, so how do you guys work in there?
We work with their families very closely. I know for a fact that when we have been able to convince the families to allow them to finish their education or finish the course that they have come to us for, and then they get those jobs, the pressure on them not to get married, the pressure on them to get married comes down, right? So, because they're independent, they're bringing money into the home, and I find that very often the girls are doing very well compared to the boys, which is an issue. Which is an issue because I think even the government policies are focusing more on the girl child. So boys are being left out of the running. So I believe boys have to be part of these interventions. And if we're working with women and we want the lives of women to improve, we have to work with men.
Absolutely.
If you don't work with both, that dissonance that exists will get further exacerbated. You after all, those girls are going to end up marrying those boys. They're going to end up being in those families. So you have to work with both.
Correct.
And why should boys be left out? They need that care too. And I understand in a patriarchal society like ours, boys have a lot of benefits which girls don't. But when I look at the individual boy as a child, even he's not getting that much.
Absolutely.
So I think unless we work with both, we have a problem.
Yeah, but there's a stigma around boys also, na, कि आप emotionally they cannot be available. उनको emotional well-being की ज़रूरत ही नहीं है. They are built that way, strong है. They have to act that way.
So these gender stereotypes that that we live with is ridiculous. Because, for example, when we look at an issue like abuse, UNICEF did a study where they found that 80% children in India are molested or abused. Now, 80% is very high. I mean, it's super high.
Correct.
But the assumption always is that it is girls who are abused. But let me tell you, because I work with men and I work with boys, boys are equally at risk of abuse as girls. But what happens in society? Girls are policed. No, they'll keep an eye on the girls. But what happens to the boys? No one looks at. So, unfortunately, I think boys get left out of this reckoning. And it's so important that we ensure that they also are safe and cared for and loved.
Correct. Because it's a community altogether, right?
Of course.
आप एक को पीछे छोड़ दोगे, एक को pull on करने का try भी करोगे तो भी it's no beneficial anyway.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Correct.
So therefore, I have a problem with the government of India talking about only the girl child. भाई बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ, क्यों बेटों को नहीं करना?
Obviously उनको भी करना.
So what is that? All our children need it. And I think if we don't teach the same values to all our children, if we don't give them the same opportunities, many are going to be left behind.
Now when we talk about, there's a lot of, we were talking about stigmas in a way, right, for boys and girls also. There's a lot of stigma associated with the LGBTQI community as well, right? As we were talking before this also, that, they're not even given their basic rights. So, abhi, after there's still people are talking about, they should be given rights. There are sections that are passing on. Do you see that, there's a little positive change amongst people? They have started accepting the community in a way, or still there's, a long way to go?
I don't know how much people are accepting the community. I see changes. From the last 30 years of my work with the community, of course I see changes. But I see changes because of one reason, that there are changes in the law. So till the laws don't change, I think issues are going to continue. Even when the laws change, of course, issues will still continue. But I think that if it's it's very difficult to change the way people think. But if we have strong laws and people are protected and their rights are protected, how society behaves will also change. And I look at something like sati. If you look at sati and you read about the times when sati was prevalent in northern India, because it happened only in the north, you can't imagine that sati would ever stop. If you read about how people wrote about sati, you can't imagine. The very fact that today women are not burning themselves on the funeral pyre of their husbands is huge. Because उस वक्त का तो you can't imagine कि रुकेगा ये. But what changed? It changed because it was banned. And it didn't change overnight. Even then people were doing it. But look, it has changed now, right? That's why it gives me, I'm very determined that the laws must change. And that's something I've always fought for and will continue to fight for. Because if the overall environment does not change, will not support the LGBTQI community, if they have to continue to live in this environment of violence, it's going to be very difficult for them.
Plus there's a lot of disparity also, right? Matlab, education के लिए they are not able to go to the same schools most of the time as a normal kid would go to, because उसको बच्चे के level पे ही इतना ज़्यादा लोग teachers ही वो differentiation कर देंगे.
But that is the transgender child.
Yeah.
You see, the child that is more obviously effeminate or different looking gets singled out.
Yeah.
So they don't end up getting an education. They drop out of school. It's really common for children who are obviously trans for that to happen. So yes, it's a problem, which is why their rights have to be protected.
And what do you think that, should be the next right? Because you fought for section 377 for like 17, 18 years, right? Abhi, what do you think should be the next move where, it should be
all their rights have to be secured. There's nothing else.
And nothing is
They
happening.
must have every right that every citizen of this country has. Which means, actually it's easier said than done. Because when you start looking at laws, you have to look at, so when we look at the right to marry, for example, then we also have to look at the right to divorce, property rights, parenting rights, all of that. So you're looking at changing an entire
ecosystem in a way.
But it has to happen. You can't continue denying what is obviously the right of every citizen of this country. How long are you going to deny it?
Correct. Also, when we talk about children that that came to you via HIV or AIDS, right? Obviously, अभी जैसे आपने बताया कि people would not look at them the same way. They themselves would not be comfortable in their skins, and going out and telling people about their right identity or XYZ factors. Obviously वो उनके mentally बहुत ज़्यादा ट्रोल ले लेता है उनके ऊपर इन अ वे, राइट? सो एक तो इमोशनल हीलिंग चाहिए ही चाहिए फॉर श्योर, राइट? अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट उनको एक ऐसा कम्युनिटी चाहिए दैट दैट हेल्प्स देम थ्रू दैट प्रोसेस ऑफ ग्रोइंग अप एंड helping each other out. So how do we make sure that this is provided to these people?
First of all, I don't think anyone needs to disclose their status
In
to
case,
anybody.
yeah, absolutely.
Number one. It's their choice. Disclosing your sexuality or your HIV status or whatever is dependent on you, right? Because given the kind of medications available today, people living with HIV are living really healthy and long lives, thank God, right? So they are, I know children, my children are very well integrated into society. They're living outside, they're working in multinationals, they're working in corporates, they're doing all kinds of work, so, and they're very well integrated. So I don't think it's a problem, because it's like, it's like having to, today the meds are like, it's like having to take medicines for high blood pressure. It's that good
Easy.
today, right? Many years ago, people were dying because the meds were not available. But that's not true anymore. So they can live really healthy lives, they can work, they can marry, they can have children. Nothing is stopping them, because once you're on those drugs, your viral load is negligible. You can have children who are negative. So you can live a really normal life.
Absolutely. And when we talk about all things great and small, you have such a vast variety of species living with you, right? How do they go together well? You have dogs and cats together. Usually we say that dogs and cats do not gel well together. Then we've got emus and dogs.
Yeah.
The combinations are in a way very different.
No, we have this great video up on our, I think on our Facebook or on our website or something. That it's incredible to see the relationships. There is this, of course, dogs and cats, not all of them get along, so we do keep them separate, but there are some dogs who will hang out with the cats.
Yeah.
There's no problem. But what is amazing is to see the relationship between pigs, cows, and buffaloes. There is a pig who sleeps on top of a cow.
Okay.
All the time. That's how she sleeps. She climbs, like the cow will sit and she'll climb onto the cow and sleep. And this is and pigs are heavy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, all kinds of strange relationships happen, which is what gives me a lot of hope that as human beings also maybe
They should go and learn from animals,
that we
right?
have a lot to learn from animals. Yes, we are brought up to believe that certain animals will not get along, and some of them don't, but many of them do. So much to learn, right?
Absolutely.
It's an incredible place to just look at these animals and how they behave. Also I think the healing power of animals is unbelievable. We once had a very severely autistic child who had come to us, and he was in a wheelchair. He couldn't move. He couldn't even move his hands. And his mother was with him. And it was so interesting because I put his wheelchair where he could get close enough to the animals. And we had this abandoned Great Dane with us. Okay. And that dog just came and put his head on this boy's leg and stood there. And Shabbo, the horse who I mentioned earlier, the love of my life, she used to be very frisky and very full of life. And she came, and then when she came towards him, I put a carrot in his hand like that and closed his hand. She came and so gently, took it from his hand and kept standing there and ate it and stood there. I have the joy on this child's face was incredible, but what was also it still makes me, it brings tears to my eyes. The mother just broke down and cried and cried. And she said, I have never seen my child look so happy. So, this gift that animals can give us, and I feel so sad when I hear mothers tell their children, कुत्ते को मत छूना वो काट लेगा. Hello. Don't do this to a child. Children are born fearless. Adults put fear into them. Right? So, and for people who have not experienced the love of animals, I think they've really missed a major thing in their lives.
Absolutely. I myself have a dog, so I usually take him out on walks and stuff. So every time there's a small kid around, the mothers would be like, "पास नहीं जाना, उसको muzzle पहनाओ, आप muzzle पहना के घूम." मैंने कहा यार पहले तो आप देखो, he's a well trained dog, right? और उसके भी अपने खुद के कुछ rights हैं. आप उसको ये नहीं बोल सकते ना कि वो अपने vicinity में भी muzzle पहन के घूमे. This is unacceptable. चलो आप डरते हो, आपका बच्चा उसको प्यार करने की ट्राई कर रहा, पहले ही उसके अंदर fear embed कर दे रहे हो कि नहीं वो तेरे को काटेगा ही.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense at all. It does, and I feel really sad for those people, actually.
So, at Naz India, as well as all things great and small, what's the vision that you have now?
Oh, well, this is, I'm now very much on the golden phase of my life. So I'm hoping that both these organizations will continue giving life to all those who come to them. And that they will continue working towards a just and equitable society, because that's all I wish for both the organizations to do. And I'm hoping that the organization is imbibed with this spirit, and that will continue. One can only hope for something like that, right? You can't look into the future and after you're gone. But that spirit should continue, and I am very hopeful that it will, because of the kind of people associated with the organization.
And how do you imbibe that spirit into your team members, the people that are working so closely?
By the way we live and by the way we do what we do. We do believe in equality, and we will ensure that, at least knowingly, we would never discriminate against anyone or hurt anyone. I think those are values that get translated into the way we are with people, with others. So hopefully it'll happen.
I was just going through your profile the other day, and I realized that you've got so many awards and so much of recognition in a way. Probably would there have been a moment for you that you felt that this is the moment for me. This is when I feel the most satisfied with whatever I've been doing all these years or all my life.
It's really interesting. I always am surprised that I get awards. Because for me, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
The other day, French government came in, they gave you an award, and how was that?
I'm very grateful and thankful for people who do recognize what Naz and ACGS has been doing. Because it's not me, it's the organization and everyone associated with it. So it's very gratifying to be acknowledged and awarded, because also it gives you the strength to continue doing what you're doing, but was there any one point? No, I just feel that this is what I'm supposed to do, and I'm not doing anything so great. I'm just doing what I wanted to do from the bottom of my heart. So I'm very happy. I'm getting so much more back than I would ever give. So I think it's a continuous process.
And नॉट अबाउट द अवार्ड्स ओनली, है ना, कभी कोई ऐसा मोमेंट हुआ होगा ड्यूरिंग बोथ दी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो आप रन कर रहे हो जहाँ पे आपको लगा हो कि यार दिस इज़ द अल्टीमेट थिंग दैट आई वांटेड इन लाइफ एंड दिस इज़ व्हाट आई हैव अटेन्ड टुडे?
I think when Section 377 was was read down, for me was an incredible moment in my life. And in terms of, because really that was the first time that I felt that there was hope for the LGBTQIA community. I really did. And for animals, I think it's constant, because there are so many occasions when they come to you in a condition that you can't even imagine. And if you can get them out of that, and if you can make their lives a bit more livable, and the one, oh yes, I must share this. We got a little horse who both her eyes had been gouged out by there were two groups who were raising horses to bring them up and would sell horses. So they got into a fight. So one group, to get at the other group, gouged out this horse so that they'd never be able to sell her. So she came to us, and it was incredible. She would not allow anyone near her. So we had to put her inside. All our animals are in the open, but she was put into a stable. And for 6 months, there were two parts. There was a part at the back and then in front. It took her 6 months to start. The person who would clean up would go in and feed her and had to get out, and she wouldn't come near them. So I didn't know what to do. So 6 months passed and she wouldn't even come to the front of the stable. Then I, desperation, say, you're willing to try anything? Then I said, okay. So everyone who would come there, those who would sing, I would tell them, go and stand there and now sing. And those who could not sing, I would tell them, you just speak to her and read a story to her. So I think she started getting used to kindness in the voice. Then she started coming to the front. And then she started coming out. And now she's outside. And wherever you are, you call her, she'll come.
And you have named all your animals.
Yes, we have named all our. Though some of them, of course, have them. We have 250 cats. Now, many of them look very alike.
Correct.
So then we have many greys. So they all get called greys. And they all respond. Because animals respond to tone, no?
Correct.
So it's
so they're most responsive to you, to everybody in the team.
They're responsive to everybody.
So yesterday I was going through your website, I saw that you have a bull जिसको आप बुलाते हो, that I'll kiss you, and he comes and he puts his forehead there.
Yes, Chandu. He's also, there are two. One is, of course, my Bheem, who's the buffalo.
The bigger one जिसका टांग टूटा था.
He's a buffalo, and he is just unbelievable. You can sit on top of him, he'll not know you're sitting on top of him. He's that bindas. All he's interested in is eating. But I have a bull, Chandu, who's got horns like this.
Scary.
And he just comes and he stands like this. And I'll pet him and he'll go. But Bheem is the one who kisses. So I tell him, Bheem,
come here.
Bheem, come, kiss, kiss, kiss. He'll come and put his head like this, and I have to kiss his head. It's incredible. And he's
adorable.
A huge fellow.
I've seen that. मतलब कोई उसके स्ट्रक्चर को देख के डर जाएगा क्या? Why is he coming towards me?
He's the gentlest soul on this planet.
Absolutely. When you've seen so much in life, you've built so much in life, obviously you must have made a lot of sacrifices in life.
No.
Nothing?
Bilkul nahi. Absolutely not.
It's been part of journey?
Listen, how can it be a sacrifice when you get so much in return? How can it even... No. I think all of us do because we get something back. There's no... As human beings, it's not possible for us to make sacrifices. Hota nahi hai. But I really think we get so much more back. नहीं तो क्यों करते? कुछ तो मिलना चाहिए ना. All our relationships are transactional. As human beings, Even our relationship to our God is transactional. क्यों हम नहीं कहते आप हमें ये कर दो तो हम ये चढ़ा देंगे? कहते ना हर वक्त आप मेरा ये कर दो तो मैं एक मिठाई का डब्बा चढ़ा दूंगी. Everything is transactional, so none of us is different. तो मुझे नहीं लगता कि sacrifices हुई हैं बिल्कुल.
No, usually people talk about that, no, कि to reach to a stature I would have to give up on XYZ stuff. I had to, be away from family, or I had to give up on so and so habits or my time, or anything for that matter. And then they name it as sacrifice rather than the efforts that you're putting in to achieve something in life.
बिल्कुल नहीं. भैया look, अच्छा, so this to me it's so interesting. Then people will say, "Oh, you don't have children of your own?"
I have so many kids anyway.
I'm like, geez, I never wanted kids. So sacrifice का हुआ. My problem was that I ended up with kids. But kids have a way of making you love them. And I remember my mother was very upset when I told her I didn't want to have kids and I didn't want to get married. And she said, "What is this nonsense?" So I said, "Ma, I don't." She said, "Okay, ठीक है." They were very supportive of me always. And finally, when the first child came, and then the numbers increased, she said, just retribution. Remember how you said you didn't want to have kids? Now look. I said, yeah. So now I look after them. Suppose I had kids of my own, I don't think I would have been able to look after them.
Correct.
नहीं होता.
Probably you were built for this, right?
So
it was all destiny.
I just think I'm very lucky. Sacrifice की बात ही नहीं.
Absolutely. Abhi jab you've been seeing so much in life, going through so much, seeing so much around you. Obviously आपके कुछ habits होंगे, कुछ rituals होंगे that you do to keep yourself sane in a way. क्या है वो? Or is it like that just giving back to the community is what keeps you sane?
No, बिल्कुल नहीं. Listen, I think what has helped me keep my sanity is my work with my animals. And I love gardening. So I think that's the other thing that has kept me sane. And I love music and all those good things in life.
So when you're not helping people or animals, you twin into music and gardening.
I listen a lot to music. I garden. We do organic farming. So I garden all the time. I grow vegetables organically for the staff, for the children and for the animals. क्योंकि गरीबों को तो ऑर्गेनिक मिलता नहीं है.
Correct.
We all think it's only our right. So I have a lot that keeps me going.
There's too much on your plate, to just keep you busy all the time. And all that in a way is, tangled together.
Because it's not work. See, I think at the end of the day, I'm one of those lucky people that when I get up in the morning, I don't think, hey, Bhagwan, now I have to go to work. It's not work. It is just so much pleasure and fun at one level. And of course, there are days when you say, why am I doing this nonsense? Because gaaliyan bhi bahut padti hain. When you deal with humans, you have to deal with gaalis. So yes, all of that also happens. But that's life, right?
Absolutely. Now, as we're coming to the end of this podcast, how many years it has been? Around 30 years for you into
for Naz.
Yes, for Naz, it's been good 30 years. And for
ACGS about 12 years now.
Right? So, abhi, so much you have seen in these years, right? Abhi, आप क्या envision करते हो कि आपका legacy क्या हो in terms of?
कुछ नहीं भाई. Once you're gone, you're gone. क्या? Nothing. Once you're gone, you're gone. The only thing is that one hopes that both these places will continue giving the kind of support that they've given so far. That's all I want. Nothing else.
And probably one thought that, you want to leave the audience with that, probably something that we can do at our levels to make this world a little better place for everybody.
Don't let the big picture stop you from doing anything you want to do. Just reach out to that one soul, one individual. That's how change happens.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, ma'am. It was just incredible speaking to you.
Thanks.
Thank you for staying till the end of this episode. If you liked the episode, don't forget to subscribe, like and share. Also, अगर आपने कोई अच्छी habit आज इस episode से pick की है, do put that into the comments and let us know.